from the CyberHub bunker and studio, you're tuning in to the CyberHub podcast. And now for your host and CISO, James Azar.
Happy Monday. Good morning, everyone. Welcome to the Practitioner Brief. James Azar here, your host. We've got a busy show after a awesome weekend. I hope you guys all had a magnificent weekend, gang. Got some rest, recharged your batteries, getting ready to get started into a new week here with cybersecurity. We've got, like I said, a very, very loaded show, but thank you for tuning in. We are live on Facebook, LinkedIn, and YouTube. You can subscribe and follow the CyberHub podcast now on your favorite social media network. Find us on Facebook, Instagram, LinkedIn, YouTube. Go and follow us on YouTube if you haven't yet. I'm putting some exclusive content on YouTube going forward. We're going to have a CISO Corner playlist, and it's going to have 5-minute CISO videos on all kinds of different things. So if you want to understand decision making, and so much stuff, go there and follow us there as well. Good morning, Nahar Shill, and happy Monday to you too, sir. Good morning to the magnificent James McQuiggan. Good morning to Daniel. Thank you for joining us this morning. And good morning, an awesome conversation on Clubhouse. This morning, about an hour ago, we had a conversation on Clubhouse. You can tune in, go to the other side of cyber on Clubhouse, follow the club there. We're there every Monday and Thursday morning, Eastern Standard Time, 8 a.m. on Mondays, 7:30 a.m. on Thursdays. You can, and it's also for Asia and our Asia Pacific folks. That's predominantly why we do it so early here in the States, is because we're catching the end of the day of all of our friends over in Asia Pacific. So you can go and check that out as well. A busy show today, but we wouldn't be able to start it without giving a shout out to at least the brands and the companies that help support this show. KnowBe4, Wistic, and Ativo Networks. Go check them out. You can see more about them in the show notes. As a reminder for everyone watching, all the links to all those stories I'm going to be reviewing today are in the show notes. You can catch them right there. And now, without further ado, it's Monday morning, and God knows we all need a cup of coffee. If for those in the US, if you're in Europe, you might need a beer. It's that time of day. And the first Euro game is for another 2.5 hours. So, you know, yesterday was a series of great games, but cheers to everyone out there. All right, let's get right into this story. Now, I'm going to take issue with Hacker News calling these people hackers because they should know better. But nonetheless, let's look at this right here. So apparently criminals trick Microsoft into assigning a Netfilter driver loaded with Rootkit malware. Microsoft on Friday said it's investigating an incident wherein a driver assigned by the company turned out to be a malicious Windows rootkit that was observed communicating with a command and control server that was located in China. The driver, called Netfilter, is set to target gaming environments, specifically in the East Asian country, with the Redmond-based firm noting that the actor's goal is to use the driver to spoof their geolocation and cheat the system and play from anywhere. So this is either a really sophisticated, a very, very sophisticated threat actor, or a bunch of kids that just really want a video game. The malware enables them to gain an advantage in games and possibly exploit other players by compromising their accounts through common tools like key loggers, according to the Microsoft Security Response Center. The rogue code signing was spotted by Karsten Hahn, a malware analyst at German cybersecurity company G-Data, who shared additional information, details of the rootkit, including a dropper, which is used to deploy and install Netfilter on the system. Upon successful installation, the driver was found to establish a connection with a C2 server to retrieve configuration information, which offered a number of functionality, such as IP redirection, among other capabilities to receive a root certificate and even self-update the malware. The oldest sample of Netfilter detected on VirusTotal dates back to March 17th, according to Hahn. Microsoft noted that the actor submitted the driver for certification through the Windows Hardware Compatibility Program. From a business perspective, folks, this doesn't have much of an impact because they're really targeting gaming, but imagine how many people in our DevOps teams and engineering teams and even everywhere else that are gamers. So this could be targeting them as well, something to keep an eye on. Before we move to our next story, good morning to my good friend Joel, and he's drinking Kona coffee. That's awesome. Coffee cup cheers, go England. Yes, I think England plays today, McQuiggan, if I'm not mistaken. We have a slew of good games. I've been sneaking them in through my iPad while I'm working and watching them. So Just don't tell anyone else, because they think when I'm on conference calls I'm looking at them, but I'm not. I'm watching the games. So Microsoft continues where SolarWinds hackers continue to target IT companies. Microsoft said it observed new activity associated with Niblium, the Russian-linked threat actor that compromised SolarWinds. The attack, which was brought on in early 2020, involved compromising the Orion platform. And now we're seeing a new activity. On Friday, Microsoft revealed that it recently observed the password spray and brute force attacks associated with Niblium's activity, and it targeted with targets identified in 36 different countries. The criminals mostly focused on IT companies, which accounted for 57% of the targets, but also had government organizations along with a small number of NGO entities, think tanks, and organizations in the financial services sectors. The US was hit the most, with 45% of the target entities located in the country. UK, Germany, and Canada were also hit. While most of the attacks were not successful, the criminals did manage to compromise at least 3 organizations, according to Microsoft. The victims have all been contacted on the matter. The investigation into this campaign has revealed the use of information stealing malware to compromise the computer at one of Microsoft's computer support agents with access to basic account information for a small number of the customers, according to Microsoft. The adversary leveraged this access to launch a highly targeted attack. It has already secured the impacted devices and started notifying all customers. This type of activity is not new. We continue to recommend everyone take security precautions, such as enabling multi-factor authentication to protect their environment from this type of attack and similar ones. So again, enabling MFA, something very, very simple, helps solve these types of threats. The SolarWinds criminals that were behind that specific attack are not going to slow down anytime soon. They made out with a huge bounty after the SolarWinds attack. So mind you, they're going to continue down that threat line. They're still going to be targeting Microsoft systems because of the damage. Remember, SolarWinds was just the gateway. Microsoft was the target. 70% of the world's organizations use Microsoft as their primary software within the business. So keep that in mind. If you're in an environment where you're Microsoft dominated, you're not out of the woods. You're never out of the woods. You've got to look at every alert, every little thing that comes into your environment, and don't take it at face value, but investigate and understand a greater trend of data. A data analyst or someone who's a really smart forensic investigator can look at all these different alerts that come through and start to think about it very, very differently. Keep that in mind, folks. We'll move on to Mercedes-Benz, a story we talked about this morning on the other side of Cyber on Clubhouse, but the high-end automaker is now admitting that one of its vendors has been leaking customer information out of its storage, out of its cloud storage system. The situation is a bit unsure. Mercedes says that this happened between January 1st, 2014 and January 19th of 2017. However, there are other things out there that talk about this being much longer, another supply chain attack with a very significant challenge here. According to the records, driver's license number, social security number, credit card information, and date of birth were all compromised in this specific attack and this specific leak, folks. So keep your eye out for that as well. Our final story of the day here before we wrap up: a Cisco ASA vulnerability is being actively exploited after the release of the exploit. So criminals are scanning for and actively exploiting a vulnerability in the Cisco ASA devices after a POC exploit was published on the internet toilet wall of a website called Twitter. The Cisco ASA vulnerability is a cross-site scripting vulnerability that is tracked as CVE 2020-3580. The vulnerability can allow an unauthenticated threat actor to send targeted phishing emails to malicious links to a user of a Cisco ASA device to execute JavaScript commands in the user's browser. A successful exploit could allow the attacker to execute arbitrary script code in the context of an interface or allow the attacker to access sensitive browser-based information. After the vulnerability had been fixed and enough time has been given for devices to be upgraded, security researchers commonly publish a POC to show how it could have been done. On Thursday, this POC was published, and the exploit, once these exploits are published, folks, and you see them, just know that someone is scanning them. I think a report last week we talked about said anywhere between 5 minutes to 24 hours. These guys are trying to take advantage of these exploits and get a foothold in, especially in a ransomware as a service marketplace. Because once I get a foothold in your network, I can sell that to a ransomware gang that's going to do ransomware as a service with a split. So I get 15, 20, 30% of whatever the bounty that they retrieve from you is from the ransomware attack, which is significant for a lot of different people. Please make sure to patch your Cisco ASA if you have those now and get those done as well. Folks, that's it for our practitioner brief today. I'll be back tomorrow at 9 a.m. right here, 9 a.m. Eastern, right here on Facebook, LinkedIn, and YouTube. You can tune in. Please make sure to subscribe. Please make sure to share more and more of the podcast with your friends and colleagues. We do appreciate the help. Go check out last week's CISO talk. This week, we've got a really cool episode coming up as well, and so much more stuff coming up, including our awesome webinar on securing Active Directory, which is used in 90% of breaches. That's on July 17th. That's Friday at 11 a.m. Eastern. But you don't want to miss it. Caroline Crandall, Joseph Salazar from Ativa Networks are going to be joining me to an awesome conversation. So make sure to go sign up to the webinar right now. It's an interactive webinar, no PowerPoints, none of that stuff. It's just a conversation around how do we secure our Active Directory in an era where it's being used in 90% of cybersecurity incidents. So something you don't want to miss. We'll be talking about Azure Active Directory and the difference between Azure and standard Active Directory. So you don't want to miss that. Go sign up for that. The link is in the show notes as well. Until then, folks, it's James Azar signing off. See you tomorrow and stay cyber safe. Cheers.
We love feedback, so make sure to connect with us on social media and subscribe to our podcast on your favorite podcast listening platform.